I'm talking with clients who have to be out of their house in a couple of weeks, and they assumed they were going to be getting their share of the money only to find out that they're not. There could be some conflict regarding who is entitled to what, and you've got now some challenges trying to convince a landlord or an apartment complex to rent to you when you don't have that money or when you have poor credit. Finding a place to go when the house sells in your divorce is a very common challenge that I have with a lot of my clients. So, there are a couple things to keep in mind. Number one is you need to establish whether or not you will have access to proceeds from the house with your attorney before you put the house on the market, because it is extremely common in family law to have the judge order all of the proceeds from the sale of the house actually go into an attorney trust account, or they're held for further division. It's very common because there may still be some allocations of reimbursement, or there could be some conflict regarding who is entitled to what. So if the house sells before the court has had a chance to make rulings on some of these other issues, then it's very common that the money is going to be ordered to an attorney trust until further division. So you want to know if that's your case, because it's very sad when I'm talking with clients who have to be out of their house in a couple of weeks, and they assumed they were going to be getting their share of the money only to find out that they're not. So, number one, find out what the arrangements are. Number two, if you do need money and you are in that situation and the court hasn't made these decisions, what you should do is definitely you want to ask if there is a way to have like an immediate disbursement. Example, you've got $300,000 in equity from the house, and the court has said all of it's going to an attorney trust account. Well, if you have access to maybe 20,000, then you can find a place to live. You can, carry yourself for a little bit and maybe pay for some moving costs or whatever. So you can ask your attorney if you can at least get an early disbursement or an immediate disbursement of a certain amount. Now, the way that in the cases that I've worked in, the other spouse that doesn't live in the house anymore is also entitled to that same amount. So you both then would get 20 grand in this scenario. And then the additional, 260,000 would go to an attorney trust account. So I'm just giving hypothetical figures, but you get the idea. So that's one solution to get some money in your hands, in order to move. Now, if you're in a situation where maybe you have access to money and you still are having a hard time figuring out, maybe your credit isn't any good. That's very symptomatic of divorce cases. Or the money that you're getting is just not enough. You don't have enough. And, your income is very low, or maybe you don't have an income. Maybe you've not been a wage earner in your marriage, and you've got now some challenges trying to convince a landlord or an apartment complex to rent to you when you don't have that money or when you have poor credit. So again, there are some things that you can do. Sometimes you can negotiate with with a landlord that you will pay a certain amount upfront, maybe 6 months upfront in advance, with the understanding that you're going to have access to more funds. You can try and negotiate something like that. And if all else fails and you just are in a situation where you don't have money, maybe your house just doesn't have a lot of equity, maybe it has no equity, and you're just not going to get any money, and you don't have income, and you do have poor credit, then, living with family, living with friends, doing something like that is sometimes an option, and what I see my clients needing to do. But here's the thing that I would definitely say, regardless of whether you have to go couch surf for a little bit, or whether you have to live in a neighborhood or in a community that is not equivalent to the lifestyle you're used to, I would say to you this: give yourself a 2-year plan, because if you are dedicated to rebuilding your financial situation and rebuilding your credit, and you give yourself 2 years, and I mean, it is head down, and you are just dedicated to that, then you would be very surprised at where you will be in a few years. That's one of the joys of the work that I do is I get to see, I'm with my clients during sometimes their bottom. They've hit rock bottom, and I get to see the progress and where they are a few years later. And I can promise you that the stories are far, far better than there are, stories of my clients not doing so well. So I would just say get a plan, figure it out. Your credit can absolutely be repaired the minute that bleeding stops in credit. So you've got maybe late payments and that sort of thing. The minute that late payments stop and the bleeding stops, your credit starts to rebuild. It is a healing thing. So you're not stuck with bad credit for the rest of your life. Credit can go one direction or another drastically in a year. So just work on healing, work on getting yourself back together, get a plan together and stick to it. And let's check back in 2 years. I want to see where you're at. All right. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, please like, comment, and subscribe. And best to you.